Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose of Metal Nation and of course Metalholic.com. Joining us today, Ivan Chopik of Painted in Exile. How are you doing?
Doing well, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Congratulations on the release of the new record, The Ordeal. Given the album title and the events of this week, the release date couldn't have been better planned.
Oh, man, yeah. It's definitely been a long road for us getting to this point, and we're just happy to have this off our shoulders and to have this out there for everyone to hear and also work on some new music.
Absolutely. Now, much has been made of The Ordeal as a comeback album, first album in 7 years and so forth, but in many ways, this really seems like it's a debut for the band.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. You know, it's obviously, you know, the foundation for the band was really established in 2009 when the Revitalized EP came out. But since then, we've had quite a number of lineup changes. Many years have passed, and you know, we listened to different music, developed on our instruments in whichever ways. And I think the Ordeal is a pretty good representation of where we're at now as a band with the current lineup. But at the same time, there's this. We try to really retain the spirit of what the band was about to begin with, which is, you know, anything goes. There's no restrictions on a stylistic thing or, you know, there's no musical ideas that are off the table because they wouldn't fit our sound. You know, it's anything that we like to include is still something that we'll consider for a song. So in that way, it hasn't changed much since 2009, but in terms of overall sound, it definitely has, and this is where we're at now.
Nice. Well, yeah, and you got to imagine the evolution with the new members and your own changing musical tastes are going to have some impact on it. But tell us about The Ordeal from your perspective.
Sure. Well, a lot of the material kind of came together over the last 2 years rather than 7 years, as many might think. Since we got a full solid lineup, we had our vocalist Rob rejoin about probably a year ago at this point. But before that, we had DM as a single that came out right about 2 years ago. And once we had that out, we really started pressing the gas on finishing up other songs that we had. The thing is, we have so much material, probably twice the material that is on the album right now. But we had to shape it into songs and finish them off and do all the polishing on them. And that actually is kind of what took a little bit longer. So from my perspective, the seeds for a lot of the songs might have planted earlier on. For example, House Cards is a riff that I had before I joined the band. Jupiter is an acoustic riff that Mark Lambert, our other guitarist, had that dates way back to the Revitalized days probably. So even though the seeds for a lot of the songs were around for some time, the album really kind of came together from my perspective in the last few years, I'd say.
Now, you stated that you went into the studio with a specific vision for this record. Did it turn out as you guys envisioned it, or did the process of recording the album sort of alter that vision?
I think generally speaking it did. You know, obviously, like, what we've learned is you plan for something, and then it comes out how it comes out. Like, we're like, you know, let's try the short song for once, and then it still came out like 5-6 minutes probably. I don't know. But as far as the vision for the sound, we did get what we wanted. We went to Jamie King as our producer, and what we were looking for is to have a modern, tight-sounding record, but also retain a little bit more of a, you know, band in a room vibe, if that makes sense. Even though we still multi-tracked everything and layered and all that, we wanted to retain some of the earthier elements, you know, as far as not cleaning up every aspect of the drums and the guitars and the bass 100%, putting everything to the grid 100%, cleaning up every single noise that's there. You know, it's not a fully polished record, and that's something that we wanted because you see with metal, especially progressive metal, there's this, for many years there's been this push to strive for perfection, where I found with a lot of the records that I like to listen to, there's a lot of just very human elements that make them special. So we want to have a little bit of that quality in there, and I think that's kind of what we're referring to with a specific vision, if you will.
And you mentioned, of course, just a moment ago that you worked with Jamie King on this album, who's a fantastic producer. What sort of impact did he have on the record?
Well, he brought his sounds to the table. You know, I think he's done some of our favorite sounding records. You know, I think Contortionist Language, for example, is a good example of that. His big contribution, I would say, is the sonics, and also just being there to offer up his advice when the time was right, but also being super laid back and kind of going with the flow for us. You know, there's probably 0% butting heads with Jamie. It's just, you know, we would look at something, what's the best decision? everybody throws an idea on the table, and then we move forward. So I think he was a pretty critical piece to keep the process moving along. So I guess in summary, he got things moving along, and he brought good sounds to the table. I think that's what we're looking for.
And, of course, you mentioned butting heads a moment ago. I've always noticed that with progressive bands, the more progressive a band, the greater the intellect of the group that comes together. How did you manage to balance all of that creative energy, that intellect, and the egos within the band to create the Ordeal?
I appreciate you saying that, by the way, about the intellect, but you also mentioned egos, and I think that's right. In our band, everybody takes a lot of pride in their work, and everybody is a writer. Every single person contributes to every single song. So naturally, there was a little bit of that, a bit of a balancing act that had to happen. And what really helped us out is, while the initial process was sending ideas back and forth over the internet or working on a section here or there, we took about a month to get together in person, and that's where a lot of those checks and balances kind of came into the equation, where we could really feel out a song, and instead of going back and forth or maybe debating what's better for this section or that section, we could play the songs and see how they felt live before we committed to those changes. So I think that was pretty key for us to get that balance right.
Now, the opening track, House of Cards, a massive bit of brilliance there. Tell us about the video that you guys shot for it, because it looked like you had a lot of fun with it.
Oh, yeah. Tom Flynn was our director, and he killed it. He had done a couple of videos before that we liked, and he was from Long Island, where most of the band's based, so it just kind of made sense to go with him. Yeah, it was actually an indoor soccer field where we filmed this, which is, you can tell from looking at the video, but it was an indoor soccer field. They blacked out a part of the floor, and they pulled out all the stops. Tom had a drone flying over us. He was on one of those hoverboard things circling around with a camera, and it was about 3 guys filming it. So we did the whole performance bit over the course of one night, and then all the storyline scenes were filmed on a separate day. Actually, I haven't met any of those actors or anything like that, so it was kind of, a surprise for us what it would turn out to be at the end, and we were very happy with what he came up with. So,
now, are you guys planning any other videos from the record?
Yeah, we've been talking about it. We really like to do a live performance video.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe for the Bazaar, but at this point it's all ideas that we're throwing around. All that's been confirmed for us is that we would definitely love to make another video. I think that there's a couple of songs that really lend themselves to storyline,
mm-hmm.
and at least 1 or 2 songs that lend themselves more to a live performance energy kind of video. So we'd love to do at least one more, but in a perfect world, we'd have videos for all of them and make the most of out of all of them, because they all mean a lot to us at this point. So, but time will tell. Right now, we're getting ready to put out a whole bunch of playthrough videos, so that'll be the next step in the immediate future.
Nice segue into my next question, because I know a lot of people ask bands, hey, what's your favorite song on the record? And I don't want to ask you that, but I always sort of wonder, especially for instrumentalists, you being a guitarist, do you have a particular moment or passage on the record that just gives you chills when you listen back or every time you play it?
Good question. Let me think. There's definitely a few, I would say. There's a couple all within one song, and that song is Jupiter. It's kind of a departure from the really heavy, dense, layered sound that we have in a lot of songs. It has a lot of space in it, and for me, playing that, there's a clean guitar melody in the beginning that our keyboardist Alan wrote, that I have the pleasure of playing, and that one for me is just a real joy to get across. It's one of the easiest things physically to play, just in terms of technique, but at the same time one of the most difficult to really get the feel and the timing and all the articulation right. So once all that clicks and playing back with the band, that's a real joy. And then the other one is my solo in DM. It's about probably 3-4 minutes in. I forget exactly, but doing that one, I got to pull out all the stops and basically throw everything in the kitchen sink and make the most of it. That was a lot of fun. But as far as a moment that actually gives me chills, it would have to be the section right after the solo in DM. It's the ending to that chorus right before it goes into the avant-garde section that we have there, and it's just a culmination of everything. It's one of the peaks on the album where it's heavy, there's a high melody going over it, and There's some, I don't know, 20 layers of different things all in one top of another. So that for me is, every time I hear it, I still get chills in that moment.
For you personally, where have you drawn your inspiration from over the years as a guitarist and as a songwriter?
Well, I had a lot of music in my household growing up. My dad played in various rock bands growing up, and my mom is a classically trained pianist. She studied for like 16 years. So there was always a lot of music in the household. I had a lot of blues to listen to growing up as well. I remember there's a record from Robert Cray called Some Rainy Morning. I think it was probably, I don't know, 95, 96, 97 that I first heard it. And it just like, for some reason, that record really spoke to me. It was very soulful. And then, you know, I was into all the classic rock stuff. Zeppelin is probably my favorite all-time band. You know, from there, I kind of got into Ozzy and Van Halen, and then I discovered Stevie Ray Vaughan. That was another big change in playing for me. And it's actually interesting. I remember very vividly, there was a moment where my mom took me to a record store, and she told me she'd get me either 2 cassettes or 1 CD, you know, because it was about the same price.
Right.
And I'd always heard from my dad that CDs are better quality. And, you know, the 2 that I wanted at the time was Limp Bizkit, Significant Other, and Jimi Hendrix Greatest Hits. And, you know, that day I decided to get the Jimi Hendrix Greatest Hits CD. And I wonder what I'd be doing in life right now if I'd gone the other way and picked the Limp Bizkit CD. So that was a pretty pivotal moment for sure. And then I started getting into a lot of fusion and jazz by the time I was starting around college. Well, actually, probably the biggest period was right before that. I got into Joe Stump and Yngwie Malmsteen and Vinnie Moore and all Michelangelo Badia, all the new classical shred guys. And that's when I kind of locked myself away and had, you know, there was sometimes during the summers between school where I'd be playing for 10 hours a day, just shedding. And yeah, that was a big developmental period for me as a player. I really got my chops together during those years, I think. And then once I started college, that's when I turned a little bit more to jazz and fusion and kind of fine-tuning a lot of those things. So long story short, I guess quite a mix of things, you know. I think we're all, as musicians, we're kind of the little bits and pieces that we like from all the different stuff that we listen to. That combination of things that we like that comes out in our playing kind of ultimately ends up giving us our unique voices. So for me, it was all of those things.
Yeah, I was going to say there's elements of all those different styles still mixed into all of this, especially on the Ordeal, you know, which is a fantastic record.
Thank you.
Absolutely. With everyone having day jobs, so to speak, what are things looking like for you guys in terms of touring?
I think we just got off a short run with Intervals and Pliny. So we went to Cleveland, Indianapolis, and St. Louis. Had a good time with those guys. I don't know that we'll have any extended periods of touring before the end of the year. I know that we want to do a proper CD release show, do a short run in the Northeast since we're based out of New York.
Right.
But 2017 is the year that we're banking on to do a lot of touring. We want to hit the road as much as we can, you know, and we're preparing ourselves both mentally, financially, and just, you know, working our schedules to make that possible. That'll be the primary goal for the band in 2017, absolutely. So as soon as we have some news on that, we'll make sure to post it everywhere we can.
Awesome. Ivan, I appreciate you taking the time, man, to chat.
Man, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that, and thanks for taking the time and for supporting us. It means a lot. Appreciate it, man.